Hi, and welcome to our session today, Learning to Learn, exploring the impact of an online Learn to Learn program. Joining me in the presentation today is Dr. Karina Menzies-Ballantyne. I'm Tanya Rutherford, and our co-researcher is Dr. Melinda Mann. Now today we're going to share with you a bit about the Learn to Learn program, also the research that we did in 2019, and ask some questions of you towards the end and get some ideas. If we start with why Learn to Learn was actually developed, it was started back in 2017 and it was based around the issues of attrition. We all know the problem is significant. The attrition rates vary from around 15 to 25% of students, and in 2018 approximately 50,000 students dropped out, and financially that was about a $1 billion impact for universities and a direct cost of around 600 million to the students as a total. And for many of those students, they're already facing financial pressures. At the time, I was undertaking my graduate certificate in tertiary education, and I had a sudden realization that although we were trying to teach our lecturers how to facilitate a learning process, no one was actually teaching the students how to become independent, self-regulated learners. Generally speaking, our students either come from high school, where they've been directed and coached in what to do and how to do it, or they're coming from having no recent education experience. Either way, they don't have the skills and experiences that we're often expecting them to have when they start. We also know that they have a lot more distractions and mixed responsibilities than they would have had in more traditional student cohorts. Families need to be fed, bills need to be paid, and other stakeholders in their lives may not view study as important as they do. And starting with why students actually are trying, what would their own reasons for doing so? And for a lot of these, as you can see on the list, they're not currently being addressed in the work that universities provide generally. I know we do have scholarships and things like that, but there's a lot there that is really dependent on the students being able to manage themselves. And what I found from conversations and my own observations is that we actually don't develop the skills and the capabilities and the resilience in our students so that they can actually do that themselves. The approach that I decided to take with creating Learn to Learn was really looking at how do we develop those self-regulated learning skills and mindset, and also actually study strategies. So how do we actually teach them what we try and embed in the learning so that they can do it for themselves if they need to. And of course, because they're complex students, is actually taking a whole of life approach to everything that they're doing. So I did go through quite an extensive research process, both in terms of identifying what there was already out there and those gaps. And that biggest gap for me was really around the expectations and the assumptions we have for students starting that actually aren't realistic, and that's that having those self-regulated learning skills and confidence. So I did a lot of research into self-regulated learning theory, growth mindset, neuroplasticity, brain-based learning strategies, and sort of brought all that in with, learning design theory. How do I actually bring that out and explain that at the same time? Reflecting on my own learning journey and also on my own experiences as a coach and as a learning facilitator. If I had to sum up the design of the program in one sentence, it would probably be, we don't know what we don't know. And so in using that as a baseline, it's all about explaining the frameworks that our learning process goes through and how to actually proactively influence our own learning and our own strength in that learning experience. Now, in terms of the actual structure of the program, it is very much using lots of different media, lots of different reflective activities, diagrams, practicing strategies, and actually applying all the knowledge throughout the program. And it's scaffolded, and scaffolding is explained throughout the whole program. we recognise that each student has a different lived experience, they have different challenges, and they have different learning needs. And so it's all designed to help them to personalise their own program. We've taken into account our Indigenous students and making sure that the program does support them throughout, and in doing so really supports everyone so much better. It is a very engaging program. And I know this because they keep telling me that. So it is about making sure that people connect with you and in a way that comes across as a very personal and genuine. And now I'm going to hand over to Karina to talk a bit more about the specific research project that was run at CQ University.
Thanks, Tanya. Yes, we received ethical clearance to undertake a small-scale trial. We were interested to find out what, if any, impact the students themselves perceived they gained from undertaking the program. And we particularly wanted to look in 3 areas that we had identified as associated with retention: understanding of mindset, their study skills and strategies, and their confidence and self-efficacy. We had a cohort of 20 distance students across a number of disciplines and completed with the criteria that they had to have completed 1 term. We divided the group into 2 groups of 10, one who completed the program by themselves, the other who had access to a weekly session with a student mentor. We took a mixed method approach using online surveys and Zoom focus groups. The surveys were conducted pre, post, and at the end of term. You'll notice the mentor sessions, the surveys, and the focus groups were all online because we didn't want to muddy the waters by having anything face-to-face. The survey consisted of 27 questions covering the 3 areas of interest, where students had to rate themselves on a Likert scale from 0 to 10, with comments like, "I struggle to keep going when I receive a bad mark." The focus groups were 40 minutes long and were held after the exam period. They started with open-ended questions as discussion starters, with follow-up questions from the facilitator where clarification was needed. Not all students completed all the modules, so we decided to only include results for those who had completed 50% or more, so that we could see that they had benefited from some of the content. Although not statistically significant, the quantitative results did appear to show a positive trend from the pre-survey to the end of term 1 in all 3 categories. It also appeared there was a higher shift for those in the mentor group compared to the control group, and that this shift was maintained at the end of term. Student 57, who completed all modules and all mentor sessions, not surprisingly recorded the highest shift in all categories and maintained this at the end of term. As is often the case, the richer data came from our qualitative approach of the focus groups. It was very evident in these focus groups that the concept of a growth mindset was something that is both interesting and motivating to the students. Particularly the mature age students found it very encouraging that the mind continues to grow and you can always keep learning no matter your years. In terms of study skills and strategies, it was evident that the students were planning much better and not leaving things to the last minute. From an unsolicited email, it appeared that these goal setting actually extended beyond their academic achievements and involved a serious situation with a domestic violence order, which the students related to the program in terms of wanting to realise her dreams. For confidence and self-efficacy, much of the discussion focused on feedback. The students seemed to be able to gain a better perspective on feedback and not be so hard hit when they received bad feedback. Those in the peer mentoring group did feel that being able to discuss the content with other members of the group and the mentor did enrich the program. They felt that they engage with the content better when they could bounce off each other. One of the students who was in the non-mentor group actually said they felt a little bit lonely undertaking the program by themselves. We appreciate that this was only a small-scale study of 20 participants, so it will need to be repeated with a larger cohort. We also appreciate that the students self-nominated, so they were motivated to undertake the trial and the program. As mentioned, not all students completed the program. We couldn't find out from all of them why they dropped out, but we do know that 2, it was not related to the program, but related to other issues in their life and their study. 1 mentioned the fact it was not graded, and another that it clashed with assignments. This clashing with assignments raised something that bubbled out of the focus group in terms of the timing of the program. Although it was not something we'd set out to study, it became very evident from many students that they wished they'd undertaken the program prior to starting their study. We teased that out a little more, and there was mixed feelings about whether the program should be open-ended and available to them throughout their first year of study, or whether having a deadline helped motivate them to finish it. So where to from here? I'll pass back to Tanya.
Thanks, Karina. And now we'd like to hand over to you, our audience, to share your ideas and thoughts on our following 3 questions. The first one is, how might such a learn-to-learn program be best used in higher education or other contexts? The second one is, what might be an appropriate timing or offering of the program? And the third is, if you have any suggestions as to how the program may need to be adapted to meet specific contexts. And of course, an opportunity if there's any other thoughts or comments that you might like to share after that, if we still have time. Thank you very much.